Hello everyone. Today in the subject of medical microbiology, I will be teaching you about viral disease detection. So the main objective of this lecture is to give you a brief introduction about different methods that are involved in viral disease detection and what are the significances of the engagement and the methodology that are involved in the viral disease detection. So the outcome will be student will be able to understand and learn the fundamentals and principles that are involved in the techniques that are related to viral disease detection. So laboratory diagnosis of viral infection. So first of all, what we are going to learn here is the basic things that are involved in the laboratory diagnosis of viral infections. Okay, you must understand before coming on to this topic that virus is a very different entity. Okay, virus is not like general bacteria or fungi. Okay, a virus is somewhat a connecting link between the living and non-living things, right? So how the virus behave and how the virus has its own structure and its working mechanism is somewhat very different. So it dates back to the procedures when the life started at very early phase. When we get back to 3.8 billion years ago, when the Luca was there, the last universal common ancestor of all the cells, of all the organisms that exist these days. So, since that time, virus was infecting readily these materials or these organisms. And as the life progressed and as the life enhanced itself, right, and made itself much more complex and advanced, simultaneously following the same scenario, virus also had transformed itself and made itself more lethal according to the scenario of the cells that are being followed upon. Right. So, meanwhile, following this protocol, what had happened that as the cells were getting more and more advanced, and eukaryotes developed into prokaryotes and further on, so these viruses were also transforming themselves. They were also adopting the changes according to the scenario that was going on. So, according to the fossil record, the virus has also transformed itself significantly since those early days. Although it is just a connecting link between living system and non-living system. Okay, so the main property it has that when it is present inside the living system, it becomes active. When it is present outside the living system, it becomes inactive. So this is how the virus operates, and this is how their working mechanism functions. Right. So they use the molecular machinery of other living cells for their own benefit and for their own multiplication. And because of that, as a result of this, they increase their numbers significantly with the usage of such kind of materials or such kind of living cells, whether it is bacteria, whether it is an animal cell, or anything. So, viruses have adopted a certain aspect of working mechanism. So, coming on to the introduction, viruses are infective organisms which are responsible for many diseases in humans. Yes, it is very true. Okay, because we humans are still in our early phase of medicines and we are still developing a lot. Okay, our technology is still evolving, our science is still evolving, and thanks to the uh, work of Sir Alexander Fleming and how he discovered accidentally the antibiotics, uh, from penicillin notatum, and how his work transformed everything that was related to bacterial disease in the medicine. Everything has changed since then. So, but when it comes to the fungal side, we also have the same scenario. But when it comes to the viral side of these things, we are still in the old stone age when it comes to the treatment of viral diseases. Uh, many outbreaks and pandemics they occur, and they do have a large amount of havoc on the human populations. So currently, you can see the scenario of COVID that is going on, right? And it has posed a lot of threat on human population. So these kind of diseases they do hamper the progress in humans. They do hamper the economic system and development that leads to a lot of destruction. So when it comes towards dealing of viral diseases, the scientists are nowadays working hard to find an easy cure and easy solution. Because we cannot eradicate the diseases caused by viruses, we are there only to cure the symptoms. We cannot completely eradicate, and we are still following the methodology suggested by Robert Koch in order to make the vaccines. Okay, so our technology is still very old. So we need new methods and new technology to cope up with these viruses. And still, this chapter is still uh, needs to be completed, and this story needs to end. And we need a lot of development in the field of virology. Since viruses cannot be grown in artificial media, that and the tissue culture technology may require longer periods. Serodiagnosis of viral infection is the mainstay of diagnostic virology. So, most importantly, the things that are being considered when dealing with these infections is that viruses are not like bacteria. Okay, bacteria, fungi are different, and viruses are different. So you can artificially culture fungi and bacteria in the laboratory, and you can see their growth patterns, and you can test different medicines and medicinal substances or the substances that can be used potentially as a medicine on those populations. But when it comes to testing the viral compounds in the laboratory, you cannot grow it like bacteria. Okay, because virus for growing virus you always need a living cell. Okay, so for the longer period for may stay in the laboratory, you need to have some advanced level of tissue culture techniques. Okay, and it only grows inside the organisms. It does not grow inside laboratory. So it does pose a lot of problems. Alongside other techniques like direct detection of virus in clinical specimens and cultivation of viruses are also practiced. So every time you have to look into the matter that how these things are behaving, okay, and how these things should be detected, and how these things should be cultivated in the laboratory. Okay, we do need a lot of progress and development when it comes to dealing with viruses. The development of technologies like PCR, polymerase chain reaction, have provided an effective alternative for diagnosis of viral infection. Right. So, what will be the objective after going through this lecture? You will be able to describe the importance of specimen collection. Right. Explain the methods to preserve, transport the sample, at what temperature the sample should be preserved, and what sample and what is the main reason and how to transport it. Okay, and how you have to collect the specimens, and what are the correct methods that are employed for that purpose. Uh, Describe the various method of isolation of viruses. Virus isolation is an art, okay, because although it is not readily cultivated in the lab, many animal models are used for the structural and this medical for the medical significance, and they are just cultured in those living systems, and because of the reason they cannot be artificially cultured, uh, they can readily be they cannot readily be replaced. Although they are not at all able to be cultured artificially, so they need to be improvised methods, and we do need a lot of different technology that will still come in this century. Okay, and what we expect by the end of this century, we expect that we will successfully cure this viral diseases and the threat they have been posing on humanity since a very long period of time. So, we describe various methods for isolation of viruses, explain the molecular tissue and molecular techniques used in diagnosis of viral infection. Right. So, a lab diagnosis of viral infection begins from a very step of collection of specimens. So, what are the essential requirements when it comes to the sample collection, and how one should collect the sample? Eventually, how what are the necessary steps that should be taken not to get infected with the viral disease, and all other important points that we are going to discuss in this lecture. So, when it comes to specimen collection, attempts should be made to obtain material from the organs that are infected. So one must understand that what are the organs that have been infected because of the viral infection, and what uh, organs are being infected and affected. So every virus has its own nature. Every virus affects the things accordingly because of its own nature, right? So attempts should be made to obtain material from the organs that are infected. So scientists and pathologists and virologists, they all focus on uh, what is the area that this particular virus is affecting, right? So every virus has its own behavior and its own nature. For example, skin for cutaneous uh, cut- cutaneous cutaneous lesions, direct secretions from respiratory and gastrointestinal tract. So, cutaneous or cutaneous lesions. Okay, so cuticle is being infected because of the viral infection, right? And although if the virus is infecting the respiratory tract, the upper respiratory tract and lower respiratory tract, then you have to collect the secretions from the respiratory tract also. So, like for example, COVID, it readily affects the respiratory system of the individual. So, you need to collect these samples from that uh, very particular site. Gastrointestinal tract that require in case of respiratory or gas- gastrointestinal system involvement. Like for example, if we see the example of polio virus, it readily grows in the throat and in the intestine. So you can take sample from the gastrointestinal tract secretion and also from the throat when it comes to polio. In fact, since most viruses enter the body through the respiratory tract or gastrointestinal tract, so these are the two tracks that are always open when it comes to human, right? So whenever it has to enter inside your body, it will enter through your respiratory system and your gastrointestinal tract, The most obvious and appropriate specimen is respiratory tract secretion or GI tract secretion. So, whenever for sure they have to collect the samples of viral diseases and they have to make sure everything is up to the mark and samples are collected properly, one must always ensure that the samples are collected in a correct manner with the correct method. So, in case of internal organs involvement, where a direct organ specimen is difficult to obtain, sampling from multiple sites seems very useful. So when internal organs are involved, okay, and you don't know where to focus and you don't know where you should go and target the situation from. So in where direct organ specimen is difficult. So where it is really very difficult to target the organ and take samples from it straight away. So samples are taken from the multiple sites and then they are subjected to the procedures of testing. So, multiple sites seems very useful. For example, in case of measles, the skin is the most dramatically involved. Yet, measles virus may be isolated from the respiratory tract or from the urine. So, when you see the individual suffering from any viral disease, okay, when you see the individual suffering from any other disease that is viral in nature, and you are not at all aware of it, and what is the correct nature of that disease and how the behavior of the disease is there. So, what you can do, you can readily take that individual and uh, collect the samples from multiple sites from his body so that you can very easily detect what are the affected sites because of this viral infection. Okay, so you can easily target the virus from different sites in the body. Similarly, central nervous system and cardiovascular system are commonly affected in series of viral infections. Similarly, the central nervous system and cardiovascular system are commonly affected in serious viral infections. So, these two systems are significantly targeted by virus. If we take example of poliomyelitis, it readily damages the central nervous system and also the some portion of brain, especially the gray matter of the central nervous system. So, when the individuals are affected in serious viral infection, the condition really becomes serious. But the virus may be isolated from the upper gastrointestinal tract or gastrointestinal tract secretions also. So, every viral disease has its own characteristics, and but somewhat their symptoms are very similar in nature. Okay, you will always feel fatigue, you will always feel uh, weakness and irritation, fever, and drowsiness, weakness, and many such things like that. So, whenever you are dealing with viral diseases, you must understand the scenario and treat the symptoms significantly because according to the recent researches we are still progressing and till date we cannot completely eradicate the virus because we still do not have the first hand solution for viral diseases. We can only treat the symptoms that that disease is posing onto a person and make his or her life manageable and easy. Still, because of lack of research and lack of resources, we do not have the easy solution for eradication of virus. But we expect it in the near future that we will have some sort of solution. Optimal specimen for viral culture are aspirates of fluids, exudes or secretion tissues, washing of upper airways, stool specimens, specimen are acceptable in most situations. So viral swabs are much more easy to manage and much more easy to uh, collect the samples, and they are generally much more specified and verified and tested and respected methodology of collection of viruses. So when you have these type of techniques, you can easily collect the specimen of the viral culture, right? Nasopharyngeal washings are generally sufficient for respiratory virus. If the virus is targeting your upper and lower respiratory tract, then collecting the nasopharyngeal specimen is much more helpful for the detection of the disease and also for the research purpose of the disease. From enteroviral infection in the young child and infants. So you can here also again quote the example of poliomyelitis disease. So it is also a disease that not only targets the central nervous system and the nerves that connect uh, muscles to brain. It damages them, but it is also the common disease that is found in infants, and how that very particular disease affects the people. To culture vesicular skin lesion, the skin should be cleaned with an alcohol swab and allowed to dry for at least 1 minute. So, although we have designed many different protocols and they are somewhat effective to very basic nature also, but in the long term, these things they need a lot of improvement. They do need a lot of scenario that is useful. New techniques need to be developed. The vesicle should then be unrolled with a sterile scalpel and a sterile swab touched several times to the base. As a general rule, the frequency with which virus is recovered decreases as the duration of illness increases, and every effort should be made to obtain specimens as early in the infection as possible. So one must try to collect the specimen from the very early stage. That is that is the very beginning of the disease every time. So when you are collecting the samples, when you are collecting the samples from the very early portion of the disease, you are able to understand the disease completely and what are the pros and the cons and what are the things that you must do in order to prevent the infections possibly. So transportation and storage of specimens. So, what are the necessary requirements that are needed for the transportation and storage of specimens? All the samples should be transported to laboratory in a sterile, leak-proof container. So, the specimen in which the uh, samples they should be transported, they all should be sterile in nature. They should be leak-proof container. Most probably, what they are trying to tell you is that the container should be of containment level, right? So, whenever you are trying to transport the sample, make sure it is properly sealed, it is properly packed, and it is generally placed in a leak-proof container. Interval between collection of specimens and its inoculation should be minimal. So, you must always culture the virus immediately after it has been collected. So there should not be a very long duration of time or the gap in between. In case of some fragile virus, for example RSV virus, eh, inoculation of cell cultures at the bedside has been recommended. Swabs should be placed in in viral transport media swabs. Any swabs are not acceptable. So a viral transport media should be there, and a viral swab collection method should be applied, and viral swab should be used for the collection of these samples of the disease in order to confirm the to make the confirmation sure. Specimens are refrigerated till they are further processed. The specimens should be maintained at minus 70 degrees centigrade if they are to be stored for a very long period of time, like weeks and months. So, samples they need to be stored at minus 70 degrees centigrade for a very long term storage, right? And when it comes to the if they are to be stored for a very long term, weeks or months, so you can store them at minus 70 degrees centigrade. When the delay is short, less than 24 hours, specimens are stored at 4 degree centigrade temperature. Every time you must say that for long term, what temperature is being preferred? Minus 70 degrees centigrade, and for the short term storage, 4 degrees centigrade temperature is enough for the time period of less than 24 hours. And in between that time period, the viral specimen should be transported successfully towards the testing or research facility. So, appropriate specimen collected from patients, preserved and transported to the laboratory. Okay, so appropriately specimens are collected from the patient, preserved and transported to the laboratory in a very proper manner, and it depends on your demand of significance that you have to store that samples at 4 degrees centigrade, right? At 4 degrees centigrade or 70 degrees centigrade minus 70 degrees centigrade essentially, right? Uh, in the proper manner along with relevant clinical and epidemiological information. So here we have system, specimen and requirement. Respiratory uh, specimen for isolation for direct examination. Central nervous system, throat, swab, throat washings, nasopharyngeal aspirate. Cardiovascular system, feces, blood, cerebrospinal fluid. Right, what is the requirement? Brain biopsy and cerebrospinal fluid. Eye conjunctivital scraping swabs, and what are required conjunctivital scraping and swab. Liver specimen in blood, and what is the requirement in serum. Congenital infections, throat swab and product of consumption. So, what are the different methods that are employed for laboratory diagnosis? So, first of all, scientists and researchers or virologists they must understand what is the family of that very virus. Okay, what is the nature of that virus, and how that virus is infecting everyone. In the laboratory, the following methods are commonly employed: microscopic demonstration of virus or its inclusion body, demonstration of virus antigen or detection of the specimen of the specific antibody, and molecular techniques. So all these things are essentially very much important when it comes to the laboratory diagnosis of viral diseases or these viral specimens. So, following this, after uh, the inspection of virus and from every angle, scientists they proceed ahead according to the protocol. So, what we see here, microscopy. It includes detection of viral inclusion body by light microscope, detection of virus or viral particles with the help of electron microscope. So every time you have to see that what degree of work is going on, detection of viral inclusion bodies by light microscopy, detection of virus or viral particles with the help of electron microscope. So, in early days, electron microscopy was not there. Okay, whatever things that are visible through a light microscope were considered to be the things of utmost importance. But nowadays, the things have changed a lot. The technology has changed, and because of that, only different methods have been evolved. Light microscopy. Light microscopy has been traditionally used in directly demonstrating viral infection by detecting the viral inclusion bodies in smear and tissue. Inclusion bodies are dense aggregates of sustainable substances, usually proteins. They can be either intranuclear, present inside the nucleus of infected uh, or infected cell, or intracytoplasmic, present inside the cytoplasm of the infected cell. So they can infect at intracytoplasmic or intranuclear format. Uh, it depends on the nature of the virus. Viruses that are assembled in the nucleus, usually DNA viruses, like so they are like retroviruses. Okay, these viruses assemble in the nucleus, usually DNA viruses. Right, like herpes simplex virus, Varicella zoster virus, cytomegalovirus, adenovirus, Papua virus forms intravirus incursions, while viruses that are assembled in the cytoplasm, usually RNA viruses like respiratory syncytial virus, rabies virus, virus of the pox group, forms intracytoplasmic incursion bodies. Intra-cytoplasmic lesions of rabies virus are known as Negri, Negri body, and intracytoplasmic incursions of pox virus are known as Guaneri bodies. So, every virus has its own characteristics, every virus has its own nature. And once you know the life cycle and the contagious nature, then you can easily deal with it. Electron microscopy. Electron microscopy is used in the study of clinical specimen and cell cultures. Electron microscope has been used effectively in the detection of viral agents of gastroenteritis, especially those that are uh, not recovered by conventional cell cultures. So, electron microscopy has enabled us to look into the context of viral diseases from a very different angle, because electron microscopes are useful in structural observation, especially for research purposes. So, with the help of electron microscopes, we can easily detect and see that what type of viral particle is there, what is its morphology and structure, and how pathogenic it can be. The diagnosis of important viral functions, such as smallpox, can be made quickly and safely with help of electron microscope. Demonstration of virus antigen. So here you can understand the word antigen has been generated with a combination of two words, antibody generator, right? So whenever you are dealing with such agent that generates antibodies, is called antigen. Direct detection of virus antigen can be done in cases where the antigen is abundant in lesions. It is demonstrated by serological methods such as precipitates in gel or immunofluorescence, counter immune electrophoresis, radioimmunoassay, enzyme linked immunosorbent assay have found wide applications in diagnostic virology for the detection of viral antigens in clinical samples. Molecular methods like PCR, polymerase chain reaction, real-time polymerase reaction, RT-PCR, nucleic acids. These are all some signs of presence of viral antigen. Sequence-based amplification, transcription-mediated amplification, etc., provide rapid, sensitive, and specific techniques for the detection of viral antigen. They are fast becoming routine diagnostic methods in developed countries. So they take less time and they are very easy to operate. So they are being employed more and more for the detection of diseases. Isolation of virus. The method used for isolation of virus depend upon the uh, virus that is being sought. In general, they consist of inoculation into animals' eggs or tissue culture. After the isolates are identified by neutralization or suitable serological process, isolation of virus from patients does not always mean that it is the causative agent of the patient illness. Many viruses like adenoviruses and enteroviruses are frequently found in normal individuals. Thus, it is imperative to to lead the interpretation uh, the isolation of virus in light of clinical data. So here in this picture, you can see that I was explaining to you earlier also that it is really very difficult to cultivate the virus in the lab via artificial methods. So here, what they are using the uh, embryonated chicken eggs, okay, for the cultivation of virus. So here you can see the shell, yolk sac, albumin, embryo, uh, amniotic cavity, and um, chorioallantoic cavity membrane. So these different membranes are inoculated by a viable virus in order to report its growth and see that this method is responsible for easy growth of the virus in the laboratory, and different type of virus is subjected to different type of membrane. So egg inoculation. Embryonated eggs are among the most useful form of living animal tissues for the isolation of viruses, for titrating viruses, and for large quantity cultivation in the production of viral vaccines. So when they want to isolate the virus and they want to produce the virus for viral vaccines, then they are very much essential. Okay, the embryonated egg has various sites namely allantoic membrane, allantoic membrane, and amniotic sac. Yolk sac and the embryo proper. Different viruses grow at different above mentioned sites. So, what are those sites? So, for chorioallantoic membrane inoculation is done for herpes simplex virus, pox virus, or Ross sarcoma virus. Like amniotic inoculation, influenza virus, or mumps virus. Allantoic inoculation is essentially important for virus, influenza virus, mumps virus, Newcastle disease virus, avian adenovirus, and yolk sac inoculation is done for herpes simplex virus. Okay, so an embryonated chicken egg showing the different compartments in which virus may grow. Different routes by which viruses are inoculated into eggs are indicated. So these are different methods and four different procedures following that virus are grown in the uh, embryonated chicken egg. So these are the sites and where the viruses are grown. Animal inoculation. It is the earliest method for cultivation of viruses causing human diseases. Reed and colleagues in 1900s used animal volunteers for their work on yellow fever. So Reed and colleagues first used this method. In 1909, Landsteiner and Popper used monkeys to isolate uh, poliovirus. Thiter used white mice, which extended the scope of animal inoculation greatly. Uh, Rabbit, guinea pig, mouse, rat are now commonly used in virus inoculation. So, it is needed to be noted that different animals are used for different viruses, and also there exist different routes of to inoculation. So every virus has its own behavior, every virus has its own nature, and when following the embryonated chicken egg method, not every virus grows significantly at every location. Every virus has its own nature. The growth of the virus in inoculated animal may be indicated by death, disease, or visible lesions. Disadvantages of annual inoculation are that they may be interfere they may interfere with viral growth, and the animal often harbor latent viruses. Okay, they might be having some prior viral infection. Animal inoculation in particularly is useful in the study of pathogenesis, immune response, epidemiology, and oncogenesis. Tissue culture. Tissue culture is the most generic term. Three types of tissue cultures are mostly available. Organ culture. Small bits of organs are maintained under in vitro conditions for days and weeks. They are used for cultivation of viruses, which can be grown only in specific organs. Explant culture. Fragments from minced tissues is grown as explants embedded in plasma plot. For example, adeno tissues explants for adenovirus. Cell culture. It is routinely used based on their origin. Right? What type of origin the virus are having. Chromosomal characters and the number of generations through which they can be maintained. Cell cultures are classified into three types. Primary cell culture. It consists of normal cells freshly taken from the body and cultured uh, in the laboratory. They are capable of limited growth in culture. Okay, if you are taking cells from primary culture when where they are taken freshly from animals, but readily they are not at all fully capable of growing in a very significant manner. They have limited growth time and period and cannot be maintained in serial culture. The serial culturing cannot be done with primary culture. For example, monkey kidney, human embryonic kidney, human amnion, chick embryo cells. They are useful for isolation of viruses and for vaccine production. Diploid cell culture. Uh, there are these are used to ensure a continuous supply of cell lines. After 50 serial passages through, they undergo senescence. They die, they don't perform well. Uh, they are useful in viral vaccine production, for example, human fibroblast. Continuous cell culture. These are single type, usually derived from cancer cells. They are capable of continuous serial cultivation indefinitely. These cell lines may be maintained by serial subcultivation and stored in cold -70 degrees centigrade for use when necessary. They are useful for vaccine production for viruses like rabies, varicella, varicella, and HeLa. So the growth of virus in cell culture can be detected by following methods like cytoplasmic effect, metabolic inhibitors, uh, hemadoabsorption, interference, transformation, immunofluorescence. So, serological diagnostics or serological diagnosis. It refers to diagnosis of disease based on reaction in the blood serum. The mere presence of an antibody to a virus is not sufficient to diagnose the viral infection. It only denotes that the person's immune system has been exposed to viral antigen besides a current infection by virus and antibody may have been found by the following: a previous symptomatic asymptomatic infection in response to cross reacting antigen or vaccination. In all these cases, the level of antibody will remain near the same for the entire duration of current illness. However, if the current illness is caused by the virus, then the antibody levels will rise during the course of the disease. Uh, Therefore, the rule of fourfold rise in the titer of antibodies is applied. It means that when serum samples are tested from an individual taken at an interval of 10 to 14 days, there should be a fourfold increase of antibody titer to be indicative of current infection with the particular virus. Variety of methods are available to diagnose viral infection by antibody detection. The choice of the method depends upon the sensitivity of test and intensity of immune response. Various tests are available like ELISA, complement fixation test, neutralization test, and other tests. Molecular testing. Uh, with the development of molecular technology, diagnosis of viral infection is becoming rapid and specific. Various molecular techniques which can be used in diagnosis of viral infections are nucleic acid sequence based amplification, transcription mediated amplification, polymerase chain reaction, real time polymerase chain reaction. The advantage of molecular techniques are that they are rapid and are highly sensitive and specific. The only disadvantage is that it requires technical expertise and are resource intensive. So, what you have learned with this? Viruses are infective organisms which are responsible for many diseases in humans. As virus cannot be grown in artificial media, the tissue culture techniques may require longer periods, serodiagnosis, and viral infections is the mainstay of diagnostic virology. Attempts should be made to obtain material from the organs that are infected. The optimal specimens for viral culture are aspirate fluids or secretions, tissues, washings, or upper airways, or stool specimen, swab specimen, are acceptable in most situations. As a general rule, the frequency with which virus is recovered decreases as the duration of illness increases, and every effort should be made to obtain specimen as early as in the infection as possible. The samples should be transported to laboratory in a sterile, leak-proof container. Interval between collection of specimens and its inoculation should be minimal. So, in laboratory, following methods are commonly employed: microscopic demonstration of virus and its inclusion body, demonstration of virus antigen or detection of specific antibody and molecular techniques. Detection, direct detection of virus antigen can be done in cases uh, where the antigen is abundant in the lesions. It is demonstrated by serological methods such as precipitate in the gel or immunofluorescence. The method used for isolation of virus depends upon the virus sort. In general, they consist of inoculation into animals, eggs, or tissue culture. Tissue culture is often a generic term. So, the three types of tissue culture are available, namely organ culture, explants, cell culture. So, cell culture are of three types: primary cell culture, diploid cell culture, continuous cell culture. Variety of methods is available to diagnose a viral infection by antibody detection. So, here are the questions now. The specimen collected in the case of measles is dash skin. If delay in transport of specimen, the specimen is anticipated a specimen to be stored at 4-degree temperature. Microscopically, viral incursion and viral particles are detected. Intracytoplasmic lesions of rabies virus are known as Negeree bodies, and intracytoplasmic lesions of pox virus are known as Guaneri bodies. These are the references from where we have collected the material. And thank you very much for listening to my lecture.